So, my name is Logan. I was part of Jehovah's Witnesses for 18 years, and today I'm just going to go over a lot of the corruption and secrets that this religion holds. My dad would always tell me, son, this is the best religion I've been a part in. If I wasn't raised in this religion, I would be an atheist, because every other religion I see has so much corruption. This is the only one that does it right. It's the only one that gives me hope. And I respect that. Obviously, religion across the world has an incredible amount of corruption, and the statue of the resurrection in the Vatican behind the Pope is downright terrifying. But when kicked out of this religion at 18 for dating somebody outside of the religion, having never voluntarily wanting to be baptized or committed to this religion as a child, I was extremely traumatized, right? And it took me this long, nearly 2.5 years, just to start to come out about it and also explain some of the reasoning I have for not going back and basic truths that I have learned about this religion. I'm not necessarily arguing any of their beliefs. That is a story for another time. There are many beliefs that could be argued, and there's many personal experiences I've had that lead me not to agree with their doctrine per se. But one of my life goals is to expose corruption in general, through hacking, through deep research, study, reporting, knowing things that most people don't bat an eye to know. I collect a lot of information about multiple religions, multiple businesses, people, and I stack up cases for maybe at some point in the future for me to use against these situations. But I grew up a Jehovah's Witness, and some of the kindest people I knew were Jehovah's Witnesses. Some of the most intelligent people I knew were Jehovah's Witnesses. But the second you step outside of the box and truly dive into what makes up their beliefs, what started their religion, what the majority of people are doing, what their mentality is, and if you look deep into the organization itself, see how it's run, see some of the rules that they use to keep it running, it gets really scary. And in my opinion, Jehovah's Witnesses have one of the most corrupt, if not probably top 3 most corrupt and most secretive religions in the world, to the point where it goes from being a religion to a cult. Now, being a witness, we would always laugh when anybody would call us a cult, saying, we're just Christians. We're strict Christians, sure, but it's not a cult. We don't do weird rituals or this and that. But somebody's hammering something outside my apartment. The psychological tactics that are used on the people within the religion, as well as people that are preached to, especially just the members of the religion and families, are 100% cult-like, which I'll try to explain at some point. I don't have a lot of information pulled up today. I more just have a few experiences from ex-Jehovah's Witnesses and other people who've just been downright abused or mistreated by this religion. I've only started to come out about how much this religion affected my childhood and my mental health growing up, and how I lost a lot of my childhood to this religion, and it caused me a lot of PTSD and a lot of suicidal tendencies that took a very long time to heal without therapy. Honestly, most people who went through what I did would absolutely need therapy. Most people who are disfellowshipped need therapy just to adjust to the regular world. But there's just some interesting experiences, even on Reddit per se. Now, as witnesses, we're taught never to even bat an eye to anybody who's ever left, anything that can be considered apostate. But That in itself is a cult practice. Don't look at a single thing that challenges our beliefs. Don't do it. My parents were better than that, you know? They said, if you find anything better than this, go for it. Take off. And that's not originally why I left home, but I did eventually find a lot of reasons to stay away. And let's just go, first of all, we'll talk about disfellowshipping, right? So disfellowshipping is cutting a member off from the entire religion, from family, from friends, anybody they've ever known, and it is portrayed as a loving discipline to make people miss what they had so that they return. It's portrayed as loving discipline from God. Nobody should challenge it. Nobody should do anything about it. I know my parents desperately want to talk to me, but they believe that they're going in direct conflict with the only true God by ever communicating with me. So for 2.5 years, they haven't at all, except for when I told them I got in a car accident and similar things. Why are you hammering at this time? I think they're doing a renovation project here. So, disfellowshipping caused me to make multiple attempts on my life, as it does for many, many people. My own grandfather took his own life due to medical issues at a young age, in his early 60s, but also due to being excommunicated for some business issues and some minor fraud he was found convicted of. My own father was actually disfellowshipped as well for 1 year, and the reasons were unclear. He was terrified of telling me exactly why. My grandmother rumored that he was disfellowshipped for withholding information about his father doing fraud or committing fraud. There were theories that he had a fling. Nobody ever told me. Very secretive. He was very worried about his pride being hurt, and telling me he was very worried about losing respect. But in the end, he just lost a lot of respect for being so secretive. So, my grandfather was disfellowshipped and took his own life. My dad was disfellowshipped and hurt him so badly for weeks. I believe he considered taking his own life. He was very, very distraught. And I can't exactly find where I found this statistic, but the statistic I did find is that 40%, nearly half, of people who are disfellowshipped from this religion make an attempt on their life. They're not all successful, but 40% make at least one attempt on their life due to being disfellowshipped. And within the religion, that could be seen as, oh, see how much the world is chewing them up. See how much they need God, and yet they're refusing God. When people refuse to believe in this religion, that it could be because of the religion that they're going through this. One experience I found was from a young girl on Reddit. She's now a dog mom. And similar to my story, her parents found out she was having sex and lost her virginity. And she made an attempt on her life because she desperately did not want to be disfellowshipped. That's how serious disfellowshipping is. You lose everybody you know. You're shunned by everyone. You're shamed by everyone. She made an attempt on her life before meeting with the elders to see if she would be disfellowshipped for having sex, because she was that desperate not to even go through that situation. So, once meeting with the elders, after surviving her attempt in the hospital, they said, and your suicide attempt, you know that that's a terrible sin against Jehovah. Now, suicide within this religion is considered an unforgivable sin. It's unlikely if you take your own life that you will make it into the resurrection after you die. I'm really curious how many people would kill themselves in this religion if suicide was allowed, because statistically, suicide rates among Jehovah's Witnesses are 5 to 10 times greater than the regular population of the world. That is a proven fact. Suicide rates within this religion are 5 to 10 times greater, somewhere in the middle of that, compared to the rest of the world. In a religion that is said to be so loving, so upbuilding, really there's so much narcissism, so many fake smiles, so many ulterior motives within this religion, so much hypocrisy, and so much bullshit. Now, a witness may hear this and say, oh, well, it's just hard to be one of us. It is really fucking hard to be one of you. You live in one of the most strict religions that controls people's emotions, people's thoughts. You control their entire lives, their hopes, their values, their dreams. And if they leave, they lose it all. No matter how badly they want to leave, no matter how, if they're in an abusive marriage, if they're in a bad situation, people are disfellowshipped for leaving abusive mates. They're disfellowshipped for myriads of things. Racist elders disfellowship black people for things as small as taking a candy bar from Walmart. In this case, going back to the girl who attempted on her life to avoid being disfellowshipped, the elders disfellowshipped her not for the sex, but they disfellowshipped her for the suicide attempt. She was so terrified of being disfellowshipped that she made an attempt on her life, and then she was disfellowshipped for making an attempt on her life. That is how intense this religion can be. Quite intense. Many people consider suing this religion for emotional damages and trauma in general from this. It's a really crazy situation. Another brother, apparently somebody created an apostate letter questioning Jehovah's Witnesses' beliefs and just telling them that they doubted their teachings and all of these things. And somebody signed and forged this person's name on the letter to the organization. We don't know if this was, somebody outside of the religion that had something against him. He has no idea who it was, never found out. So somebody wrote a letter to the organization saying that they disagreed with the beliefs and forged the signature of this person. This person was disfellowshipped permanently. The elders did not believe that he did not send that letter. They refused to believe him. And he was never given another chance to come back. Permanently banned. Off of something he didn't do. And if that doesn't show that men run this religion and not God, I have a lot more things that show the same. So another interesting thing I found is looking into the governing body. Now, the governing body are anointed men who are supposed to turn directly into angels when they die and rule with Jesus Christ in heaven. The others believe that they're going to be resurrected onto earth after God kills all wicked people, mostly everybody but Jehovah's Witnesses, and restores the earth to a paradise, like the Garden of Eden. But these specific people, at some point in their life, have a great awakening, and they believe that they're going to rule as part of a select group in heaven, and that they are anointed. So they have a very special privilege. Now, a few, between 6 and 9 anointed old men are chosen to run this religion as a governing body, right? And these are the men that make decisions about everything. They run the organization. and everybody respects them. They look at them as walking angels. They look at them as having a direct tie with God and his angels. Now, interestingly, if you actually study the history of the governing body, people who have been in the governing body, such as Ray Franz, they were disfellowshipped. Ray Franz was disfellowshipped and went on to write a book about all of the issues he faced within the religion. And how can you go from being sure that you are an angel after you're dead to being disfellowshipped? I don't know. And I have a lot more research to do on this topic. But another really interesting case I found, and I'll see if I can find a clip of this video in post and add it to the edit. But basically, there was one man who was a ministerial servant for a long time and worked his way up in the headquarters of the organization to be a basically physical therapy assistant to a very, very old governing body member in his late 80s or early 90s. And part of his responsibility was to be on call to help this brother get in and out of his chair for the meetings. So many times he witnessed a lot of the meetings between these governing body members, right? And if you want to look at any organization in general, right? If you want to look at any organization and see if it's trustworthy, you don't want to look at the bottom of the food chain of what they're teaching. You don't want to look at basic beliefs. You want to look at the top of the pyramid. Who's running this? Why are they running it? Who are they? Where do they come from? What do they do? What are their practices? Which goes into theocratic warfare, which I'll talk about in a minute. But interestingly, this man witnessed a verbal disagreement between two governing body members. Now, he was constantly warned through various biblical quotes not to discuss anything that happened in these meetings. I'm not sure he signed a legal NDA, but he was told, be innocent like a dove, be gracious, go in, go out, don't listen, don't do anything. They basically just told him be a silent helper. That's it. But one of these times that he came in, and maybe I'll show the clip now. Yeah, so he witnessed Stephen Lett, I believe, who is very animated. Oh no, it wasn't Stephen Lett, it was a different member. But one of the members that has a bit more of a sharp, menacing face was face to face with an angry look, pointing his finger into someone's chest, right? And he had heard shouting. And these are men that are angelic, directly connected to God. They sit there and they pray, and every decision they make comes from God, supposedly. And they're having verbal disagreements behind closed doors, shouting at each other, disagreeing, showing anger, showing the sinful emotions. That is not spiritual at all. And that is just the tip of the iceberg, going into the amount of hypocrisy that is in this religion. So going into theocratic warfare. Theocratic warfare is a very interesting topic. Now, many apostates who try to visit the world headquarters or talk to Jehovah's Witnesses in general are mistreated, shall I say, lied to, spoken out against, told to get out of their sight. Witnesses are just extremely arrogant and mean to people who are genuinely curious or just want to discuss beliefs. And if you go to a witness and ask, can we compare beliefs? Can we compare things? They say, in the gist of what a Jehovah's Witness will tell you is, if you are open-minded, I will gladly share what I believe, but I am not open-minded. I know I have the truth. So there is an intense amount of arrogance behind Jehovah's Witnesses. They do not want to be questioned. They do not want you to even have a chance to lead them down a path to question their own beliefs. So a loving, correct attitude would be, yes, please, if you have something you think is better than what I believe, please tell me. That is the attitude I personally try to have. If you have anything you believe makes more sense than what I know, please tell me. I am all ears. And I'm thankful that my parents raised me that way, even though they hypocritically don't follow that. They told me I should have that mentality. So I'm grateful for that. But yeah, Jehovah's Witnesses are completely closed off to anything that might question their beliefs, because they are taught non-stop never to look into any information that might go against what they believe. And it's so hypocritical, because when we would go preach to people of other faiths, we would say things like, oh, it's so difficult to prove these people wrong, because once you prove them wrong, they have nothing left. Their religion is their hope, it's their lifestyle, it's what they base their morals off. If we tell them that people aren't actually going to heaven and staying on earth, then suddenly their grandma they thought was watching them from heaven for 20 years isn't watching them anymore. It would be traumatic. And we would always make fun of other religions. People would even make fun of Mormons on the street and say, hey, look at how just like ignorant they are. They really believe in that Book of Mormon. They just seem like so ignorant and blissful. They're just so sure of themselves. How could they be so sure? These are the conversations of people that preach this religion. But not only is there a fear of being disfellowshipped and all of the psychological warfare that happens within the religion to keep you in, but you are strongly encouraged to question everybody else's beliefs except your own. And that is another mark of a cult. It's hilarious looking back, because if you are confident in what you believe, you should be more than happy to question it. You should be able to go and look at every apostate material and say, does this make any more sense than what I believe now? But these people are terrified of doing something wrong in God's eyes, of being expelled and losing their family, their status, their standing, their friends. And this religion does such a great job at making sure you have no friends outside of your religion, that you're isolated from the world, completely isolated. It's a perfectly crafted bubble. Perfectly. It is a Truman Show. They say the only friends, the only connections you should have outside of this religion are ones you're trying to preach to. That is it. Be friendly to people, respect them, but don't get any closer to them than an acquaintance unless you are preaching to them. So that is another cult practice. And in doing this, they create a bubble to where you are terrified of leaving, because the only people you are close to are within that bubble. And that's it. That's it. So that's a major trap that they use to keep people in. And even very intelligent people I know, probably even my own parents, that can see some holes in some doctrines, are still cowards. Not even cowards, just their whole life, it's all they have. Just like Jehovah's Witnesses make fun of other religions and say, hey, if we take that away from them, that's all they have. Of course they're going to defend their religion. Jehovah's Witnesses do the exact same thing. They don't want to hear anything that goes against their teachings, because it is all they have, it is all they know. And more than many religions, Jehovah's Witnesses create that bubble and that isolation so that you are terrified. And it is completely fear-driven. And a lot of these people only stay in out of fear. Many young people I knew, I hate inhaling spit. Many young people I knew physically in and mentally out, meaning that they were so terrified of losing their family and friends that they sinned and they practiced all these things behind a facade so that they wouldn't have to go through the trauma that I did personally of losing everybody, which drives many people to suicide. And that's part of the reason why the suicide rates are so high as well, is because people are forced to live so secretively. Now, theocratic warfare is very interesting. Theocratic warfare is a secretive practice used by mostly people above elders or ministerial servants. So outside of the actual congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, it's basically a hierarchy. The elders who watch over the congregations of the churches have a handbook, right? And the handbook is not supposed to be read by any of the regular members of the church. Even looking at that, you have to say, what? Why would a religion based off of love be so secretive, right? Why are there so many secrets? And their reasoning, basically, is that while the Bible condemns lying, Jesus would withhold information from Romans, prosecutors, or people that didn't deserve to know what they were doing. So he'd never directly lie, but specifically withhold information in order to prevent drama, etc., etc. Now, witnesses withhold a lot of information on purpose within court cases, within the congregation, and theocratic warfare is a specific law that allows brothers a bit of a gray area to use manipulation, subtle white lies, and withholding information, as well just as manipulative and psychological tactics to trick people, draw people out. It's ugly. It's really ugly. And when you really look into some of these handbooks that have been leaked and you read about these things, it goes to show the level of corruption that is in this religion. And it's so sad because going back to my dad, he said, this is the best religion I've ever found. This is the only one I think works. And the thing is, it is more corrupt and evil than the majority of smaller Christian religions that you can study. And there's many more reasons for it. I'm not even going into biblical beliefs. I'm just looking at the actual organization and what they cover up. And while I hadn't saved a lot of information to share today, the more you research and look at facts, not apostate material, not things that contradict the biblical teachings, just sheer facts about an organization that is run by men, you will see so much evil and deception happening that it makes you question everything. And it's so sad. Because once you've been out of the bubble for long enough and you see that these people are really driven by fear more than anything, it is horrifically sad. These people are brainwashed. There's a reason the suicide rate is so high. There's a reason 1% of them leave every year. A lot of them unjustly. A lot of them are convicted of things they didn't even do. A lot are mistreated by racist or narcissistic elders that withhold or maintain their position of power by being close friends with other elders. Now, there's also the child abuse, which we'll get into, but Jehovah's Witnesses' reasoning is like, nobody's perfect, right? There's always imperfect humans in any religion, so there's gonna be people that mess it up. But if you have the one true religion, the best religion, And there are just as many, if not more, evil people messing everything up so badly and causing so much trauma. It doesn't look any better than any other religion. And that's not even adding in the biblical false teachings that they have and false interpretations. Going into child abuse a little bit, the gist of the child abuse cases with Jehovah's Witnesses is that they have a secret database of tens of thousands of known sex offenders and pedophiles. Now, there is a secret letter system used that specifically states that elders must not disclose information to law enforcement whatsoever. And at the headquarters, they keep a database of every name and address of men that have been accused of sexual assault. But in court, they refuse to this day to hand over that database. They refuse to this day to share what they know. Part of that reason is the two-witness rule, that there need to be two witnesses for any sin, which is a perfect protection of these men and women, because there cannot be two witnesses to a rape or abuse. There can't be. Many times this organization has been sued, and as quoted by a lawyer in the UK, I'll have to find the specific clip, Jehovah's Witnesses care more about money than any religion they've ever dealt with. That may have been Australia, actually, but there are certain groups that specifically deal with child abuse within religions, and they get settlement amounts and they make sure that the abuser is correctly dealt with, right? And Jehovah's Witnesses have been the most secretive, manipulative, and intelligent foe that this group has ever had in court. And witnesses refuse to pay settlement. Only 1 or 2 times in history that I can find have Jehovah's Witnesses successfully paid a settlement for a child abuse claim, while at the same time saying that they abhor sexual misconduct and that it's always taken care of. More child abuse is hidden within this religion than the majority of religions that you can find. And more information is kept secret intentionally to withhold the name of this organization. The lawyers and the governing body are obsessed with not bringing reproach upon Jehovah's name, but really what they're also doing by this is preventing themselves from hemorrhaging money to the thousands and thousands of cases against them. And they desperately work so hard to prevent losing these court cases and to prevent more court cases from even happening. So tens of thousands of abuse, potentially even more cases have been hidden. And even the ones that have been brought to court, many of them are unsuccessful. And it is terrifying. It is absolutely terrifying that a religion so strongly based on love could be the most secretive out of so many others and be withholding the most information, be the least cooperative with law enforcement. It's one of the most hypocritical, corrupt religions that you can research. There's so many secrets, so much darkness, and so much evil within this religion. So many manipulative tactics. Theocratic warfare, going back to that, is a law that is set in place where elders, lawyers, all of these people intentionally withhold information, which is a crime, to not bring reproach upon Jehovah's name. And people individually take it much further than that, using manipulative tactics, lies, and deceit in general. Which Satan is the father of the lie, by the way. Withholding information is a type of lie. It's disgusting. It's truly disgusting. And people are terrified of leaving because they've been isolated in a bubble. Let's just Google the top practices of cults. Written down, the top signs of cults, top practices of cults are opposing critical thinking. This is a great one. So within the religion, higher education is severely discouraged. Higher education, so college, anything that gets you away from necessary public school, anything that tears you away from your family and your regular routine of going to church is desperately discouraged. Because what does college do? It teaches you how to think for yourself. It teaches you how to think critically. Critical thinking, right? Looking at facts and putting them together. Critical thinking. They do not want you to have critical thinking. They want you to go with the religion. Don't get higher education. It'll help you think for yourself. They try to bullshit people into believing that we're not going to need education like that in the new world after Armageddon. We're going to need trades, not smart people, so don't worry about it. But there are so many ulterior motives behind their teachings. It's, again, just disgusting. Okay, sign number 2 of a cult. Isolating members and penalizing them for leaving. What have we been talking about this whole time? Isolating members, right? No outside association. None. No outside association unless you're bringing them in. Period. That is what's encouraged. Penalizing them for leaving. Taking away their family, their childhood friends, siblings. That counts as family. All of their friends, everybody they had within the cult. Taking it away if they leave, which drives many to committing suicide, myself included. The amount of trauma I have, I can't even begin to explain. Emphasizing special doctrines outside Scripture. That does apply. I'll have to think about that more. But there are many doctrines and many beliefs that they have that are not clarified well by Scripture. They simply say, oh, well, it comes down to faith, or man are imperfect. Whenever you find a loophole in their teachings, they say, oh, you just need to have faith, or men aren't always perfect, or we don't fully understand that yet. That's all it goes back to, repeatedly. Bullshit. Seeking inappropriate loyalty to their leaders. There is inappropriate loyalty because many elders are child abusers, hiding crimes, racists, narcissists, and downright evil men hiding behind a veil of righteousness. Also, what do we talk about with governing body members being disfellowshipped, from angel to disfellowship, or having shouting matches behind closed doors? Inappropriate loyalty, indeed, because these are also just men. Dishonoring the family unit. Now, Jehovah's Witnesses encourage strong family ties, but only for studying the religion. Not for having deep communication about problems, not for spending time together. Everything is about the organization, not your goals, not what you care about, not your feelings. The religion. You should wake up and study the Bible together every day. You should study the Bible before you go to bed. That's all that fucking matters. And then, if you don't agree, or if you accidentally got baptized when you're 12, no more family for you. They definitely dishonor the family union. Crossing biblical boundaries of behavior versus sexual purity and personal ownership. I'll have to think about that one more as well. But there are definitely some biblical boundaries of behavior, such as disfellowshipping, that the Bible does not encourage. And this religion takes specific sentences. This religion takes specific scriptures in general to back up their beliefs when the context of said scriptures is actually not referring to these things at all. And the seventh quality of a cult is separation from the church, which obviously disfellowshipping is very common within this cult. So all 7 of the top practices of cults, Jehovah's Witnesses match perfectly. What techniques do cults use? An us versus them mindset. Us versus them. So there's a series of videos referred to as the Bunker series, which was shown at a convention where at some point in the future, Jehovah's Witnesses are shown as the last surviving religion, because Jehovah's Witnesses have belief that governments in the near future will turn on all religion and destroy it. And that they will be the last religion to be attacked by all government before God brings an end to the system of things, right? So, my neighbor's making some funny sounds. But basically, this religion teaches everybody that the government and everybody in the world is going to be out to get them when God decides to end this system of things and bring his kingdom to the earth and kill everybody besides Jehovah's Witnesses. So there is a massive us versus them mindset. So members are taught to stop doubts from entering their consciousness, often with a key phrase that they repeat. I'm sure there's some key phrases I could think of. What are the main types of cults? Destructive cults, of doomsday cults. It's definitely a doomsday cult. Witnesses are taught to not have any political affiliation at all. They're just simply one entity across the world. Cults always follow charismatic leaders, living or dead. Yeah. What makes a cult a cult? That's a long read. Well, this has been a 42-minute video so far. I haven't shared a lot of deep information like I would have liked to, but I think I've made a few good points. So if you have anything to say or contribute, feel free to comment, share your story, and thank you for watching.